Hi everyone, this is Jim. Welcome to this video here. I wanted to mention before I get started that I'm going to be away from my computer for a few days, so there won't be any uploads during that time, but I'll be back soon and back to uploading more videos. So let's get on with this one. This is my Blitz game 383. I kicked off with e4 and my opponent played d6. A very flexible move. I just go for the big center and knight f6. So this combination can lead in different directions. If he wants to follow up with e5, then it turns into a Philidor defense. But that's not the way my opponent played it. After knight c3, he went with g6. And now this is a Pirc defense. I didn't quite recognize it right away. I was still a little confused because I was thinking of the modern Philidor. I called it a modern defense, but the modern defense is really when the knight stays back on g8 and the bishop comes to g7. So when the knight's out here and you have this pawn set up, this is the Pirc defense. So f4 is the Austrian attack against the Pirc, and the normal move here is just continuing with bishop g7 and then later deciding how to develop on the king side, queen side, but typically black will expand on the queen side. He starts setting this up right away with c6, preparing for b5 and b4. So I play the normal move knight f3, and we're pretty much out of the opening book here. Let's just look at the notation tab. You can see the chess engine really likes white's position here. It's, you've got a lot of space and good development, so nothing not to like. I continue with bishop e2. He went b5, threatening to harass my knight, but maybe a bit of a wasted tempo. You see my advantage went up, and I played the right response, b5. You don't want to sit around and wait for this pawn to kick your knight and potentially lose the e-pawn, so you have to play pretty actively here. I did give a3 as an option, I guess. You could try and hold up the advance of the b-pawn, but you have to do something about that. Okay, so e5, kicking his knight, and he took. And right here was my first mistake. I took with the d-pawn, and I guess I wasn't really paying attention because remember I had to stop and think, what am I going to do when he takes my queen? I should really take, you can see the engine prefers this as well, I should really take with the f-pawn. This is one of those situations where I've got more space, and also with the f-pawn, so I want to avoid the trade of queens. I want to keep all the material on. That's a general rule. When you have more space, you want to keep material on. And then the second point is when I take with the f-pawn, then I'll have an open f-file and a ready-made attack going after I castle. So two good reasons for taking with the f-pawn instead of the e-pawn. The only thing I was a little bit worried about here was this d-pawn, might become weak. It's subject to being undermined by the move c6 to c5. But, you just have to pay attention to that during the game. But the advantages outweigh the disadvantages, so I should definitely have taken with the f-pawn there. But I took with the e-pawn. He went for the queen trade, and I decided I wanted to keep my knight here, so I took with the bishop. I also want to keep the ability to castle. He goes knight d5. And here I make my second mistake, although this one is a little bit harder to see. But I played knight e4 here, and it seemed like a good active post for my knight, and I'm keeping his bishop sealed in. I thought it was a reasonable way to play, and I have this outpost for my knight here. But the engine prefers a more direct approach, playing knight to d4, and I think this is good. It's immediately putting pressure on the c-pawn, which keeps his knight tied up defending it. I was worried, it's just interesting. I was worried that he would take my knight in this kind of situation. I wasn't even thinking about this move, knight e4. I was thinking of castling. And if I had, say black castles and white castles. This could have transposed. I could have castled first and then played knight d4, which is probably more likely the way I would have played it. But is this really so great for white? Both sides have the bishop pair, so I can't say I have the bishop pair. I have a lot of open lines, but I guess the main advantage in this position is I'm still keeping his bishop tied up. But I've created some weaknesses over here, and I've got pressure on this c-pawn, but he can push it forward. He can't push it forward right away. I guess that's the other point. when he pushes his c pawn forward, I can grab the b pawn. So he needs to play a preparatory move, yeah, like a6, preparing c5. So I can use that after a6. What, bishop f3? Yeah, I can use that to get more pressure on it. Yeah, maybe I actually win that pawn. Bishop f3. Huh. Okay, so anyway, that's just on the surface, this didn't look like an appealing position to me, but I can see I have a big edge in development because his pieces are tied up and he's also stuck in kind of a defensive position. So that's the best way to play, I guess. Okay, I played knight e4. Now it's pretty much an even game after this. He gets to bring his bishop out with tempo. I get a good square for my knight, and but he trades it off right away, so the good square doesn't last. Castle. It stays in the range of even, although you see the engine's slightly preferring black here. I play c3, putting the pawn on a good square, keeping his knight out of things. And so a few more moves go by. We're just doing normal development. And he gets this pin here, but you see the position is staying in the range of even, so we're all making reasonable moves here. Okay, yeah, so this is my next mistake. I should just keep the bishop pair. I was thinking, well, I've got this bishop tied up, so it doesn't matter that he has the advantage of the bishop pair. But what happens later in the game is that this bishop gets liberated. It becomes free from its trap here, and when that happens, black's position, after I've given up the bishop pair, black's position is suddenly better. So it's a mistake for me to take that knight just and give up the bishop pair. So the engine is recommending h3 here. Yep, kicking this bishop and asking it if it plans to take the knight or retreat. And that's a much better way to play. Okay, so I took the knight. He took back with the rook. And yeah, I went into this endgame where I'm just actually worse here. After this, he grabs on f3. Oh, he should grab on f3 here when I have to take back with a pawn. He played rook c d8, forced this exchange of rooks. And then I start to activate my king. And I was still feeling pretty good about my position here. And the engine says it's about even, but actually black has more prospects. Black has the bishop pair, and he can gradually unwind. And he starts right away with f6. And just there's no way for me to keep the bishop sealed up anymore. The best move here is to go ahead and take the pawn. If I push my pawn, for example, well, he can just take it, but also he's got this move f5 to free up his bishop. So there's no way I'm keeping it trapped anymore. So now he takes back with the pawn, and he has a couple routes into the game from either this square or this square coming out along these diagonals, or he can just push his pawn forward. And that bishop is going to have a roll. So I play h3, not a bad move. He retreats the bishop, keeps the bishop pair. King e2, bishop f8. So yeah, his bishop has become liberated, and now this evaluation is strictly based on the material advantage of the bishop pair. Everything else is pretty even. His king is not yet entering the game, but my king can't really get any closer to the action. It's improved about as much as it can. So he pushes on with g4. No, it's my turn here. I pushed on with g4. Just trying to gain some space. He plays f5, and now I went knight d4. Somewhere here I make another mistake. Oh yeah, knight d4 is it. Okay, that's right. Yeah, so this is my, I think, final mistake or fatal mistake. So you can see before this move, black has an advantage, and it's a tough endgame for me, but there's no reason why I should lose this. I just have to play accurately. So what happened with knight d4 is I was actually losing a pawn. I thought, if he takes this pawn over here, I take back, he takes with his bishop, and I can grab the c pawn. The big problem is that he takes this pawn with check, so I don't have the time to grab the c pawn, and that's just what happens in the game. I go here, he takes the pawn, take back, takes with check, and I have to move my king now. I went to f2, and now he gets back in time. So I've just lost a pawn here for nothing. So now he has the bishop pair and an extra pawn, and it's a pretty easy win from this point forward. Let's just go forward. He gets his pieces active. It's interesting that he's able to leave his king back, but his pieces are doing a good job here of controlling the position, so he doesn't really need the help of the king just yet. And Yep, this is just good play. He was taking advantage of the pin. And finally he moves his king forward to support his pawns. And at this point, somewhere along here, I walk into a mating net. Oh yeah, right here when I grabbed the pawn. I was thinking, well, maybe I can get a pawn back and go into a rook versus two bishops endgame if he just takes, which is still probably losing, but I could fight on. But after knight takes g5, there's a mate in 4 here. So if you want to pause the video and see if you can find the mate in 4. It's pretty interesting. Okay, I'm going to give the answer away. I think he played it, yeah, he played it entirely accurately. So bishop d7 is the first move with the check. You know, the king is blocked off from these squares, and the bishops are controlling these squares. So anyway, the king is pushed forward here, its only move. And now rook h1 check. Oh, I see. I could have thrown some pieces in the way. Knight e6. Okay, this is just, you know, giving up a piece to stave off mate. Or rook f5. Yeah, so if I don't throw material in the way and I move the king, then it's actually mate in 1 with bishop g3 mate. That's a nice little mate. I like these mating patterns. They're always good. The crisscrossing bishops cover a block of 4 squares, and his king is covering that escape square, and the rook is protecting the bishop. Really nice example of piece coordination and how the bishops work together. He didn't spot that mate, but he has another mate here. He plays rook h1 check, and yeah, let's see. I can defend slightly longer by playing rook h2, but I defended with the knight, and then he takes with checkmate. Yeah, you're just throwing pieces in the way. The rook is going to march up, taking on h2 and h3 and deliver the mate. The king is completely cut off in a box, and the bishops are controlling all of these exit squares at the moment. Okay, so nice finish and good game by my opponent there. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Leave any comments you have in the section below, and I will see you again soon.